قرية الله أكبر.
سوف أريك
لا
صور إن شاء الله.
أوكي جزاك الله خيرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Inshallah ta'ala, to your questions that we didn't get last night, we'll try to entertain them now tonight by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So the other day I asked you a question about the salawat. What about the salat, dhuhr and asr? What surah, if there is any specific surahs to recite in there, those? And what would be the length of those if you're the imam in the masjid? Inshallah.
Understood. With regards to dhuhr and asr, then the first principle is they're silent surahs. The scholars of Islam say from the wisdoms of those surahs being silent is that the people's minds in most cases are busy or preoccupied with working, seeking Allah's rizq. As far as Maghrib and Isha, Fajr, it's nighttime, then it's presupposed that the people's hearts are more free, their minds are more free, more open, hence the recitation is out loud. So in Salat al-Dhuhr, bidnillahi ta'ala, the prayers in general should not be that long in comparison to Salat al-Fajr. And the scholars of Islam generally mention that the mufassal surahs out of the Mus'haf were the surahs or are the surahs that should be recited in the 5 daily prayers. So we have different types and different levels of the mufassal. Some say starting with al-Hujurat, and some say starting with Qaf, all the way to an-Nas. So the long mufassals, the middle length mufassal, and the qisar, the short mufassal. Okay? So the general theme is not to make the salat too long in comparison to other prayers such as Fajr, nor with regards to making it a hardship upon the people who in general have to return back to their jobs. But the mufassal surahs in general, starting from Hujurat to an-Nas, and then the mufassals are further divided into 3 sections. Wallahu ta'ala alam. And of course, there are more specific details, which we're not mentioning right now, and this is in brief. Wallahu alam. And of course, the first rak'ah in comparison to the second in Salatul Dhuhr and Asr. Wallahu alam.
Question from online, inshallah ta'ala. Initials HK from Melbourne, Australia. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. What is the best gift you have been given?
The best gift that I've been given. Well, obviously, the gift of Islam, Iman, inshallah, the gift of knowledge. But I think that the questioner may be asking about something material. It seems as if they're asking about something what? Material. Allahu ta'ala alam. The best gift that I've been given of material possessions. Books, for sure. There's no doubt about that. The books overseas in America. Now, if you're talking about like most costly gifts that I've been given, then that's a different story. But most valuable, most precious, definitely books. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Initials AD from Edgewater, New Jersey. Advice on not let the media recent vilifying of Islam/Muslims affect our confidence as Muslim when interacting with the people. How not to let the media's recent...
Understood. How to prevent the media from raining on your parade, causing you to feel down and out, lacking confidence when dealing with people, etc. Well, first and foremost is avoid that which saddens you. So if watching the news is sad and depressing, one shouldn't watch the news. Or if you have to watch the news, if it's a necessity for you, you need to know some basic information, then limit Don't allow yourself to drown in the news and in the media, on your phone, on the TV, etc. Now, very interesting. The other day I was visiting a family member, and I was sitting in their living room, and they had on a TV. And of course, this was after everything jumped off with, Israel, Hamas, so on and so forth. And the news outlet, they were talking about the people fighting. And subhanAllah, I tried to pull out my phone and take a picture of it, but I was too slow. And it had, they have the person speaking, and then they have the thingy at the bottom, the name, the title, what's going on, and had a picture of the flag of Israel, the Zionist flag, this, David, whatever, white and the blue flag. And guess what it had under it? It had a green background with La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, the kalima of Tawheed. So I was shocked. And I said, wait a second. This is crazy now. Does the people that they're at war with, Hamas, do they have a flag? If they do have a flag, isn't it supposed to be the Palestinian state flag, Al-Qudsu Lana? What flags around the world have the kalima of Tawheed on it the way that they did? Obviously, that's the first thing you think about, but it was different. Saudi's flag, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, is more rectangular with the sword under it. This one was a different type of calligraphy in which the kalima was more vertical. So I asked myself, did they make a mistake? Was it an accident? How on, whatever public national TV or whatever the case may be, did somebody put that there by chance? So how many people would pay attention to that or see that or notice that? You get the point I'm trying to say. What is their message that they're sending? Al-Muhim is that if I had never seen that, and I've never seen that. So if you can't take certain things like this, different things that they slip in, the things that they do say about Islam and they do say about Muslims, and if it's not about Islam and if it's not about Muslims, for indeed, one of the greatest mistakes is to underestimate your enemy and to devalue your enemy and thinking that your enemy is just dumb and stupid. That's not true. Now, the masses of people, the sheeple, the average Tom, Dick, and Harry, Joe on the street may be following the shepherd's voice, but the people running the show behind the scenes are oftentimes very intelligent, or they have a lot of intelligence. And from that is, they made it clear, crystal clear, we are not at war with Islam. We are not at war with the Palestinians. We are not at war with the people of Palestine, but we are at war with one people only, and that's the evil Hamas. That's it. We're at war with the terrorists, animal, humans, dogs, whatever they are. That, very intelligent to making sure not to make it a war against Arabs or Muslims, so on and so forth. But how in the heck did that end up on that TV station? La ilaha illallah versus the Zionist flag in a Zionist state. The moral of the story is, avoid watching the news. Avoid allowing yourself to be sucked in to the media, to the biasness, to the lying, to the misinformation, to the just stay away from it if you can't bear it. As far as if you do watch and you do listen to it, then that should strengthen your iman. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in chapter number 33, and when the believers saw the Ahzab, when they saw the people coming together to fight them, to destroy them in Medina, they said, this is what Allah and His Messenger has promised us. And Allah and His Messenger has spoken the truth. And it only increased them in faith. It only increased them in submission. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that people will lie. He tells us that people will scheme. He tells us that men will be hindered from His path. He tells us is that they will say things, ra'ina. They would try to twist the words and play with the words. He said this. He told us about all of these different things. So that should increase you in faith. And that should make you sad. And the Quran clearly prohibits the Prophet ﷺ from becoming sad that his people, the Meccans, did not believe. فَلَعَلَّكَ, Allah says, perhaps you'll be destroying yourself out of grief. إِلَّمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا. Okay, so you can't kill yourself over grief. The Quran, prohibits us from grieving over the disbelievers and the fasiqeen. It is what it is. And it's going to be what it's going to be. And I think one of the biggest problems from what I see in here is people trying to make it into something else instead of saying what it is. Why are you asking for acceptance? Why are you begging for justice and help and support? It is what it is. Okay, so not to get too deep or too politically incorrect or whatever the case may be. It is what it is. They've clearly said it. We stand behind Israel. He says my support of Israel is unshakable. End of discussion. This is the president of the United States. My help, my support of this nation is unshakable. It is absolute support. No matter what you say, what statistics, who's dying, none of that matters. Why are you getting on CNN or Jazeera or BBC? Why are you talking and trying to bring up this statistic, this state? And this is the president of the United States. Nothing you tell me or show me can change my opinion about these people and our undevoted support for them. You're wasting your time, literally. So you have to know and see it for what it is and accept it for what it is. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
It's a new convert from Sacramento, California. How do you respond?
Initials. Next question. Initials first and last, please, inshallah. Whether you're a new convert to Islam, welcome, or whether you've been Muslim 50 years. Rules are rules. Jazakumullah khairan.
HD format. Initials AM from Surrey, BC. How to stay steadfast after Tawbah, keep falling off.
Keep making repentance. Don't stop making repentance, no matter what. That's rule number one. Rule number two is that there are reasons why you're sinning, and there are reasons why you're relapsing, and there are reasons why you're not getting as much mileage on your Tawbah as you need. And we've explained that in classes with regards to the 4 gateways of sin. The 4 ways that the sin falls upon the servant, or the servant falls into sin. Jayid? Barakallahu fikum. Asli hada. Cat's asli.
Initials SA from San Diego, California. When making wudu, does the water have to flow salim over every part of the body? I have large arms and find it hard to have the water flow naturally and wipe the water over dry parts.
Bismillah. Make wudu the best way that you have the ability to make it. Pour the water under your long arms, or on your long arms. There are people in the world who have longer arms, and it is their obligation to wet their long arms and to make sure that the water gets where it needs to get on their long arms. There's enough water in the world, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, for your long arms, inshallah.
This was JC from Philadelphia, PA. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I believe that the Quran is the speech of Allah. When I pray, do I pray and recite as if I'm listening to my Lord's speech, or am I reciting to my Lord?
No doubt about it. The Quran is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The attribute of speech. The kalam of Allah azza wa jal. There's no question about that. When you recite, you're reciting the words of Allah. There's no question about that. And you're worshiping Allah by reciting His words. Wallahu alam.
Initials SD from Queens, New York. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What would you say about protests? Should you participate? Is it a duty for Muslims to speak up? Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you. Jazakallah khairan. May Allah bless you.
Protests. We've spoken on these before and caught a lot of heat from different people and different individuals, critics, which is fine, alhamdulillah. I think it was a few years ago during the Black Lives Matter stuff. It was George Floyd and all of that was going on. People asked me about protests. I've said then, and right now, in my opinion, really hasn't changed too much, is that Muslims have to do something. They have to speak up and do something. They can't just remain quiet and that's it. However, that which we say and that which we do cannot go against the Quran and Sunnah. It cannot go against the teachings of Islam. So therefore, if a person can prove that protests go against Quran and Sunnah and the consensus, then of course they're haram. And if a person cannot prove that strongly, clearly, directly, then It's based off of the need and the benefit of those protests. And then, of course, there are different types of protests. We know that. There are protests which are violent, riots. There are protests involving tear gas and Molotovs and, plastic shields, etc. Right? And there are protests that involve marching, walking down the street, so on and so forth. I think that the problem comes in with many other issues. People carbon copying or cutting and pasting, copying and pasting fatwa in countries and placing them in the United States. So if somebody went to a scholar and they said, yeah, Sheikh, what's the ruling on protests in America? And dear Sheikh, please keep in mind, okay, blah, etc., etc., etc. And the Sheikh is aware of those things and he gives his honest, unbiased answer. That now he may be right or wrong in that, but that's not the same as Sheikh Fulan and Fulani said that protests are haram and they're this and that, who lives in this country with a whole different atmosphere, regime, government, part of the world. It's a little bit deceptive, right? It's extremely deceptive. So I think that you have to deal with protests in the United States, not Saudi Arabia, not UAE or Qatar or Oman or this country, that country. Protests in America. Right? In light of the different rules and regulations of America. Right? So that's what I would say. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Initials AM from Atlantic City, New Jersey. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May Allah bless you, your guiding, and may Allah bless you guiding and inspiring me to practice and learn the deen. Your smile and teaching style is superb.
Jazakallah khairan. May Allah bless you.
Amen.
Thank you very much for the feedback, for the love, for the support. And I'm glad that our humble efforts have been of some use for you. Alhamdulillah. May Allah increase you. Jazakallah khairan.
Initials MA from Hyderabad, India. When I leave a mustahab act, I feel consumed by guilt. But this doesn't happen when I leave some other mustahab acts. How to solve this and keep moving forward?
If you feel guilt after performing a recommended act of the deen, then something is off on the inside. Something is bothering you or disturbing you, which shouldn't be. You should feel good after performing a recommended act of the deen. Wallahu alam. So you have to investigate your insides.
Initial CB from East New York. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hibbuk fillah. How do we stay focused when our brothers and sisters are dying all over the world?
Tayyib. How do we stay focused while most of our brothers and sisters are dying around the world? Well, no matter what's happening in the world, you have to keep on living. If someone is dying around you, you still are alive. And it isn't your time to die yet. That's just the bare reality of the nature of life. When Allah Azza wa Jal takes your soul back, that's when you'll perish. And until then, you have the responsibility of living. The spiritual aspect of that and the worldly aspect of that. So right now, my brothers and sisters, unfortunately, extremely unfortunately, they're dying. They're being slaughtered and massacred and bombed. They're suffering. They don't have food and water and electricity, etc. That's very troublesome. But at the same time, I still have to pray in America. At the same time, when I go outside, I still have to lower my gaze. I still have to give salams, return salams. I still have to remove glass or wood from the road. I still have the Islamic responsibilities. And I still have my worldly responsibilities. I have to sleep. I have to eat. I have to drink. I have to relieve myself. I have to take a shower, brush my teeth. So no matter what's happening in this part of the world, your life is still going on. So you have to live. And that's just how things are. There's no scholastic explanation of that. Okay? So Allah tests us. And we have to be patient. We have to accept and submit His qadr. And we have to try our best to do that which is right and that which is correct. And of course, any believer is going to feel horrible about the atrocities and the things that are happening around the world to the people of Islam and to the Muslims. Of course. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ.
Initials UK, Leicester, Ustad. Is the jihad of Palestine a higher level than other jihad because of Masjid Aqsa and the religious nature of the enmity of the Jews and the level of oppression?
Is the jihad and or concerning or in Palestine, Israel, Hamas, whatever the case may be, is it of a higher level because of al-Masjid al-Aqsa and because of the level of oppression and the religious animosity that the Yahud have for the people of Islam and the Arabs, etc., etc., etc. The general rule is that good deeds have their rewards multiplied in virtuous places and virtuous times, and also virtuous situations. That's the general rule. Just as sins are multiplied, the bad deeds are multiplied based off of the virtuous place in which you're in, Mecca, Medina, the time, last 10 nights of Ramadan, Dhul Hijjah, etc. And also the scenarios. You're the king of the country, there's no reason for you to lie. You're old, there's no reason for you to still be chasing women. You're poor, there's no reason for you to have pride. So that's the general rule, is that good deeds are multiplied based off of the place, based off of the time, and based off of the situation. And bad deeds and sins are multiplied based off of the time, place, and situation. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Initials AM from Atlantic City, New Jersey. Is there a specific knowledge on caves in general? There's a lot of hadith and verses in the Quran that mentions a cave. So is there any specific ilm on caves?
Specific ilm on caves? If you mean from an Islamic standpoint, I don't know. And if you're speaking on a secular or from a secular standpoint or worldly standpoint, then of course that's all included in geography and the study of the earth and the study of mountains and the study of rock or rocks and the study of the different historical areas. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Obviously a cave is interesting, whereas it's a house, a miniature house inside of a solid stone, mountain, providing refuge, places for hiding, places for ambush, so on and so forth. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Isn't there a hadith that says that the blood of a Muslim is more sacred than the Kaaba itself? So, in this case, according to the previous question that he asked, wouldn't it be more important that the lives of those Muslims than Masjid al-Aqsa itself? Wouldn't their blood come first and then the sanctity?
Understood. No doubt about the sanctity of a Muslim's blood and the weight of a Muslim's blood. There's no question about that. Wouldn't their blood come first before al-Masjid al-Aqsa? Well, from one aspect, of course, the masjid is most virtuous. The masjid of Mecca is more virtuous than the Meccans and more sacred and more holy than the Meccans. Okay, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that their blood is cheap or invaluable. And of course, the masjid is going to be upheld and maintained by those people. So, I mean, the concept of Muslims losing their lives, losing their blood, has become, unfortunately normal. And we've become desensitized. It's, flip the channels, here's a fight, it's unfortunate. But even more unfortunate than that are the Muslims killing each other and fighting each other. And the Muslims forsaking each other and betraying each other and distrusting each other and scheming and plotting with the enemies of Islam against their own Muslim brothers. That's the ultimate dagger in the heart. And not to sound like the bad guy or the mean person, but the reality is one of the main reasons why Masjid Aqsa is in the situation that it's in right now is because of just that. Muslims fighting each other, killing each other, distrusting each other, taking the promises of the kuffar to harm their Muslim brothers for their own personal gain. That's the reality. We can't turn back the hands of time, nor are we a defeatist people. Oh, don't do anything, don't say anything because. No, we're not with that either. But we're just speaking facts. Is that the Muslims' blood being so cheap to the Muslims themselves? That's what got us into this messy situation. Allahul Musta'an. And if you read the history of Jerusalem, you'll find that in several different occasions. I've mentioned a few of them. Of course, we talk about the Crusades, and it's easy to say the French, the Italians, the British, the Germans, these people, they stormed into the Holy Lands. They massacred everybody, including Jews, including their own Christians there in Jerusalem, slaughtered everybody until they were, up to their legs in blood, etc., etc. That's easy. When you read the history about the different crusades, the first, the second, the third, the People's Crusade, the Children's Crusade, etc., you look how cheap Muslim blood was to fellow Muslims, and how they were fighting for land, and how they had betrayed Jerusalem time after time to keep their land. I'll give up Jerusalem if you allow us to keep Syria. Sunni, Shia, so on and so forth. It's appalling. And then when you look later on, many years after that, the modern era, the 20th century, you look at how Jerusalem was lost and how it went from the hands of Muslims to non-Muslims. And you can say whatever you want to say about the Ottomans. They were this, they were that, they were this, but they clearly represented themselves as being Muslim. Was everything perfect in the Ottoman Empire? No. Were there problems? Were there this? Of course, we know that. But the general identity, for sure, no one is going to dispute that it was what? Muslim identity. Well, if the Ottomans were in control over the lands of Sham, which is now Israel / Palestine, Jordan, so on and so forth, Lebanon, Syria, etc., how did they lose those lands? What happened? And I'm not trying to be the bad guy. And I'm not trying to say anything that will cause our brothers and sisters in Palestine even more pain that they're already suffering. But we're just speaking historical facts. What happened? All right? What happened? What Muslims did to each other, betrayed each other. When we talk about Jordan and Palestine and this and that and Egypt, just look at the history. So that's very unfortunate, how we just looked at the blood of a Muslim, which is so sacred, like, pouring out water. Allahumma musta'an. The Yawm al-Qiyamah will be a very interesting day.
Initials MS from Gatineau, Canada. Sorry, I don't know how to say that. Does a sister from a wealthy family have to marry someone that's someone from that same background? If not, how can she adjust to a less luxurious lifestyle? It's not easy, unfortunately. MashaAllah.
A wealthy sister or sister from a wealthy background does not have to marry a man who's wealthy. The only conditions for Islamic compatibility are deen and khuluq. Deen and character, nothing else. Race, blood, profession, height, weight, none of that is a shart, a condition, obligatory, a mandatory must. Now, obviously, if you find someone that has good religion, good character, and he's also coming from a wealthy background, then inshallah, it should be more compatible. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. Many people come from wealthy backgrounds, they hate wealth, and they hate wealthy people. That's a fact. Many people that are aristocrats, they look down, they're a bunch of fake, two-faced, snobby type of people. And they're fake. I don't want to be around that. I'm tired of having people smiling in my face. I want to be around real people. So a woman is going to marry the man that she's interested in. End of discussion. And if that man that she's interested in has good religion, good character, she should be married off to him. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Initials MA from Columbus, Ohio. Ahsan Allah alaykum, studying Bulugh al-Maryam. Okay. Bulugh al-Maram versus a companion book to Madhabi Matan Adillah. in Adil. Yes, Bulugh al-Maram.
What's the question?
He's studying Bulugh al-Maram versus a companion book to Madhabi Matn in Adillah.
Okay. What's the question?
No question.
طيب تفضل.
Sorry, my bad. UK, Leicester, Ustad, was the ruling of pointing out the weaknesses of the Muslims and spreading them in a time of war and defense?
The ruling on pointing out weaknesses of Muslims and spreading them during times of war, etc. It depends on what you mean. Trying to cause grief and sadness, trying to be a defeatist, or you're trying to fix and correct those mistakes and those weaknesses. It depends. These are based off of intentions, and it depends on the manner in which those mistakes and weaknesses are being pointed out. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Initial JM from Bronx, New York. I know a woman's priority is her home. If she has a string desire to work, even with a child and home duties that she tends to diligently, would she be sinful for this? Jazakallah khair.
Ayakum. Working for a woman, it depends on the nature of the work, the need, the necessity, and what type of work she's involved in. If the work is halal, if it's permissible, then it's permissible. And if she's looking after her home and her children and not neglecting them, then it's permissible. But if it's a strain or a difficulty or hardship, or if her job is disliked or haram or includes those other elements, then you have your ruling. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Same question in brief. How do we soften a hard heart or a distracted heart? Too much TV or invested too much into the worldly life?
Softening a hard heart, visit the graves. Look after orphans. Sit down with widows. And if you get a chance, visit lifers in prison. Definitely soften your heart. You visit someone who knows that he's never ever going to leave this place for the rest of his life. Wallahu alam.
Initials MG from ATL, Georgia. May Allah bless my HD brothers on the Vanwick. Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khairan, barakallah fikum. Shukran. Ameen.
Initials AS from Kent, UK. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh. Could you please outline the pros and cons of attending Al-Qura University?
Pros and cons of attending Al-Qura. Well, I've never studied there, so my knowledge is going to be at best secondhand. I studied in Medina. Did I visit the college? I did. Alhamdulillah. Do I know many brothers who studied there? I do. But I never studied there myself. At the end of the day, college in general, an Islamic university in general, has pros and has cons. Some of the pros of Al-Qura and other schools in and outside of Saudi Arabia is that it gives you structure. It gives you organization. A con or pro is that you have a certificate that's tangibly used in the world. A pro is that because it's a university that's open to all, you're going to meet people from different backgrounds, different lineages, different types of nationalities. A pro, for sure, you're in the most sacred place on earth. I don't think we realize that. You're living in the holiest spot on earth. Your prayers, your du'as, just think about all of that spiritual goodness that you're getting living in Mecca for free for 5 years, 4 years, depending on how long you stay, 8 years, some brothers, just think about that, okay? So that's definitely food for thought. The Kaaba, the Masjid al-Haram, within walking, a bus, a cab, That's food for thought, right? Food for thought. As far as cons, then obviously any university, sometimes it's too structured. And sometimes the structure can cause you to neglect the traditional ways of studying. But that's not the college's fault. That's your fault. I know different colleagues from Medina, they graduated, say, oh, I didn't know this when I graduated. That's your fault, not the school's fault. The school never promised to teach you traditional Islamic studies, in the traditional manner. It never said you're going to sit on a carpet with a PhD professor and write on a scroll or a script. Nah, that's your fault. You go to school from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., as an example. What are you doing with the rest of your day? You can sit with this sheikh in this corner. You can go in this part of the masjid. You can go in the prophet. That's up to you. You have to do that. You have to complete that. Well, Allah Ta'ala alam. And last but not least, I would say one of the cons of studying in Mecca or Medina is that you can become ungrateful. You can become too soft. You can be accustomed to things. Because it's a known fact that Saudi Arabia as a country is an affluent country. So you have this scholarship, you have this paid for, you have that, you have so much versus people in other schools and other countries that don't have a half of that. So if you don't take advantage of those blessings, and if you don't utilize all of those gifts, you could become soft and ungrateful. And sometimes you see that with other students from other countries. You guys only memorize this in a year? Please, we did it in a week. And that's because you're going here, you're running here, you're having fun here. You don't have to worry about this. You don't have to, it's too lush. So sometimes you got to avoid being too pampered. Wallahu ta'ala alam. At the end of the day, seeking knowledge in an Islamic university in Mecca or Medina or any part of the world, it is what you make it by Allah's permission. Life is what you make it by Allah's permission. That's the bottom line. You can't blame your school for your failures or your weaknesses. Wallahu alam.
Initial JM from Bronx, New York. What to advise a person who is up to date in news/media issues, but when it comes to matters of the deen or prayer, their voice is low and not confident and strong? How to advise them?
Be mindful of what you say. You shouldn't talk too much about the deen or the dunya. And if you have little knowledge, then you should say even less about the deen or the dunya. Wallahu alam.
Initial CB from College Park. Initials AS from Kent, UK. How did the Sahaba prepare for war?
How did the Sahaba prepare for war? Well, there's a spiritual aspect, and then there's a worldly aspect. The spiritual aspect, first and foremost, they got revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah telling them they had to fight. Allah telling them that they would be triumphant. Allah telling them that they were scared. Allah telling them that this is what I want to do. You want to take this caravan, but I'm saying this is what I want, for the truth to reign dominant over the falsehood. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them direct instruction before, during, and after war. And that's something that no one can ever get. Divine teaching, divine discipline before they fought, while they were fighting, and after they fought. And the support that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them. So that's something that no one else can get. As far as the worldly aspect, in the Sahaba, they were human beings. And they fought wars, offensive or defensive, raids based off of their country, their land, their customs, and what was available to them. So therefore, the tactics, the strategies, the things that you do is based off of your time and your place, as long as they don't go against Quran and Sunnah. They had horses, you may have a tank. They had bows and arrows, you may have an assault rifle. Right? So on and so forth. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Initial SY from Columbus, Ohio. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Should you boycott a family member that was raised as a Muslim and now is a homosexual?
If you can, talk to them. Sit down with them, see what's going on in their lives or their life. Allahu alam, why a Muslim, born and raised Muslim, would turn into a homo. Maybe he went through something. Maybe he was abused. Maybe, we don't know. Inshallah ta'ala, perhaps you can be that helping hand. Perhaps you can save them from drowning in that water of evil by talking to them. And as we said before, or I don't know if I've said this before, was a very famous musician. Very, very, very popular and iconic in the pop culture or the media. Extremely household name. Love him, hate him, but he was well-known, household name. So a lot of people, they didn't like him for one reason or another. One reason or another, they didn't like him. The way he dressed, the way he said, his songs, his music, whatever. They didn't like him. So, you have different interviews with people, and they try to, they throw you loaded questions. They try to ask you dumb, stupid, loaded questions to see what you're going to say, to embarrass you or whatever. So they asked them about a massacre that took place in the United States. A high school shooting. Remember the trench coat people was in Colorado? Those kids, they went in there with the trench coats and this was way back in the day.
Trench coat.
Yeah, when the mass shootings were just, they weren't as popular as they are now. So these kids, these high school kids, they went in and shot everybody up. So they asked them about what happened. Were they influenced by your music? Blah, 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 blah. So the reporter, the lady, she says, if you could have met them before they went into the school with those guns, what would have you said to them? What would have been your words, your advice to them to stop them? And subhanAllah, this non-Muslim, he totally outwitted this lady. He said, I wouldn't have said anything to them, but instead I would have listened to them. I would have sat down and listened to what they had to say and were complaining about or sad or depressed or lost hope about, and maybe that would have stopped them from going in and shooting everybody up. So oftentimes, many people in life, they don't have a person to talk to. They don't have someone that's going to listen to them without judging them initially. Is homosexuality haram? No question about it in Islam. There's no room for discussion. Homosexuality in Islam is an abomination. End of discussion. However, I don't have to judge you by listening to you. I'm stressed out, man. I'm depressed. I can't believe my family did this. I can't believe blah, blah, blah. I want to marry this person, but I can't, etc., etc., etc. So just listening to people sometimes. Somebody leaves Islam, sit down and talk with them. Let's talk about why'd you leave Islam? And you'd be shocked what they may say. And you may be given the opportunity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove that doubt or to remove that issue or to give them advice or to give them a better alternative. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Brother, please refrain from answering people's questions in the group chat. Jazakallah khair. We will ban you if you do that again. Sorry for the harshness. Initials MA from Brooklyn, NY. Is the hadith, majority of the innovators from my ummah are from the reciters? Sahih. Please elaborate the meaning.
The majority of the innovators from my ummah will be the reciters. Is that sahih? I'm unaware of an authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ stating this. That the majority of my ummah who will be innovators or astray will be qurra. I can't say that that's sahih. That's the first part of the question. If it is sahih, or if it's fabricated or made up, so on and so forth, and there are hadith about the reciters, there are, many of them are weak, fabricated, and there are many different statements of the Sahaba and those who came after them regarding the qurra, about abundant qurra and a few fuqaha. There are many narrations regarding that. At the end of the day, what's meant by that is that people will abuse the Quran. They will use it for things which are wrong and incorrect. And that many people will learn the Quran by word, by heart, will recite it beautifully, but they won't act upon it. They won't call to it. They won't judge with it. They won't seek the cure from it, etc. So as if it's of no benefit for them, and that many people will go astray with the Quran. And that in itself is interesting. And there are other authentic hadith about the Prophet ﷺ telling us that the Quran will help you or hurt you. One of the two. If it's used properly, it will take you to the highest places. And if it's used improperly, Allahumma musta'an, you will be punished before the mushriks and before the evildoers. Waliyadu billah, because they're ignorant. They're ignoramuses. They know no better. You knew. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Salam, initials essay from London, UK. What is the hukum on a person that does not believe in tafdeel of Abu Bakr and Omar over Uthman and Ali? Is he/she still classed as from Ahlul Sunnah?
It's consensus that the best of this ummah after the Messenger of Allah sallallahu is Abu Bakr and Umar.
Wow.
Absolute consensus. Wallahu alam. Anyone who goes against the consensus, the ruling of them, are they from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, is clear. Wallahu alam.
Isaiah Al-Hashr from Windsor, Canada. Assalamu alaikum, dear Shaykh. Do you have any recommendations for books concerning the refinement of the spiritual character, such as Disciplining the Soul by Ibn al-Jawzi? Question about books.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. If you're asking about Ibn al-Qayyim's books concerning the soul and its purification, correct?
Ibn Jawzi.
Yeah.
Ibn
Such
al-Jawzi,
as
not Ibn
his-
al-Qayyim.
Yeah, such as his books, such as Disciplining the Soul by Ibn al-Jawzi.
Type. If you're talking about Ibn al-Jawzi of the 6th century from Baghdad, and not Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, all right, who's way later on, 8th century, okay, from Shem. They're two different individuals, many people confuse. Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah ta'ala has several books in which he gives admonishments to people. From the books that I would recommend is no doubt Talbisu Iblis, Shaitan's Deception. And that definitely should soften your heart, realizing that you have an enemy who is indiscriminate. He doesn't care what you look like, where you come from. He will try to deceive you and trick you. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Yeah, al-Jawzi from the 6th century, yes.
Tayyib.
But I'm open to any suggestions for these kind of books.
Ibn Rajab's library. Ibn Rajab has a book about the hardness of the heart. In Fadl Ilm al-Salafi wal-Khalaf, Ibn Rajab talks about khashya, fear of Allah, dread of Allah, how that's supposed to be the greatest character of the scholar. Okay? And there are many other great scholars who spoke on these things, these affairs of the soul and of the heart, before, during, and after their time. Ponder and reflect on the Quran al-Kareem and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about and says about His creation and the things that He made, humans and their hearts versus rocks and stones. Wallahu alam.
Initial essay from Minneapolis. Assalamu alaikum. In my language arts class, we are reading a book that has sexual topics and other haram. I don't have the option to switch. What should I do so my iman doesn't decrease?
Well, just because something's sexual doesn't mean it's haram. That's first and foremost. Sexual education has its place, just like any other type of education. That's the end of discussion. Okay, the birds and the bees have to be discussed one way or another. And if they're not discussed, then you have to figure it out on your own. So that's first and foremost. As far as keeping your iman and not losing your iman, رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْوَهَّابُ. Reciting those ayat, which are du'as, with regards to not losing iman and the heart not going astray. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Initials of MS from Gatineau, Canada. Is Ihya Ulumuddin a book I should avoid reading? I am new to Athariya.
Ihya Ulumuddin is a very beneficial book. There's no question about that. And many scholars have come after the author and summarized the book. And those summarized versions are very beneficial. So in brief, I would recommend and advise you to read the summarized versions of Ihya Ulumuddin for several reasons. One reason is Ihya Ulumuddin is extensive, it's long, it's big. Read the Mukhtasar, especially if you're not that advanced in seeking knowledge. Secondly, like any other book, but of course books vary in their levels and their ratios, there are things that different scholars found in Ihya Ulumuddin which are clearly incorrect and erroneous, without any question. And there are other things in Ihya Ulumuddin in which some scholars say are right, some say are wrong. Ijtihad, nisbi. Okay? So you as a beginner in any level, you should stay away from those problematic areas. End of discussion. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Initials MA from Brooklyn, New York. My local imam believes the Prophet was created from light. Is it permissible to pray behind him? Or should I pray home? Sunnah Masjid is a 10/15 minute drive. Sometime Iman is low.
Understood. If your local imam believes that the Prophet ﷺ was created from light, then ask him. Just ask him. With respect. Yeah, Sheikh, please tell me or explain to me how we can get to know that the Prophet was made from light. Ask him to show you, inshallah. If he can't show you in the Quran or Hadith or agreement, consensus of the scholars that the Prophet was made from light, then you should give him nasiha with respect. With respect. Wallahu a'lam.
Initials AA from KCMO. I read fatwas from my wife's country that allowed some makeup and mild perfume that does not fitna and is just to look groomed. Since we live in a country, should I accept this?
Tayyib. Living in a country or a fatwa that states that it's allowed for a woman to wear some types of makeup, some type of perfume. These are fatwas from my wife's country, and we live in a land, etc., etc.
That does not fitna.
That isn't fitna. The perfume and the makeup isn't fitna. Tayyib. In brief, that's incorrect. That's wrong. Even if this mufti or that mufti says it, that's wrong Islamically. And give your wife advice. And try to teach and show your wife where she can learn that which is better. Allah ta'ala alam.
Initials ND from Burlington, VT. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Should I distance myself from a Muslim who says it's not their land regarding the Palestinians? May Allah increase you.
Don't rush to distance yourself from any Muslim. Don't rush. Are there times and places in which you are allowed or commanded to distance yourself from Muslims? For sure. In the Quran and the Hadith. But don't rush to do that. The last thing we need is more separation, more division, etc. Sit down with them. If you believe that what he's saying is wrong, give him advice. Have a respectable conversation, a dialogue. Have a dialogue with him. He says that it's not their land. I say that it is the Palestinians' land. Sit down and talk with him. And if you still differ with them, is Palestine the land of the Palestinians or the land of the Jews or the Zionists, so on and so forth? Whether you agree or disagree with your friend or this brother, this person, that's not an issue of the pillars of Iman. That's not something you're going to be asked about in your grave. That's not something which is an Islamic issue, like hardcore Quran and Hadith. You get what I'm trying to say? Wallahu alam. Just because he has a different view, a different opinion, doesn't mean he's astray. That's a worldly issue. Wallahu alam.
Initials AS from Kent, UK. To what extent should a student of knowledge prioritize his physical fitness? The hours are few. Jazakallah khair.
To what extent should you prioritize the physical fitness? Well, the soul is contained within the body.
The hours are few.
The soul is in the body. So you have to take care of the vessel if that which is inside the vessel is precious and important. It's just common sense. It's like a ring, a diamond ring. This precious gem, this precious stone that costs so much, diamonds are forever, right? It has to be kept and held with what? Good metal, good material. So a jeweler is not going to have this, immaculate diamond with the trashy, excuse my French or English, crappy type of metal. It's going to be something of the highest quality because the diamond is so valuable. And the diamond cannot be worn, adorned without the what? The proper setting. So the soul is so important. The mind is so important, right? And those things are within the what? The body. So you can't have an immaculate soul with a poor body. Unless it's beyond your control. That's a different story. I was born deformed. I was born with this sickness. I have this illness that I can't control. It's out of my hands. That's different. But you're ignoring your health, neglecting your health because of not sleeping, sleeping too much, not eating, eating too much, eating the bad things, drinking the bad things, not exercising, etc., etc. That's no excuse. So if you value your soul, your mind for seeking knowledge, you also have to value your what? Your body. The ring, right, is only a ring when it's the what? The stone and the metal. The gold or whatever metal it is. So no jeweler in his right mind is going to have a beautiful, immaculate stone or rock with some trashy metal. And even if it is gold or platinum or silver or rhodium or whatever metal it is, it's going to be cut, it's going to be polished, it's going to be set, it's going to be perfect, flawless. Nothing else can be done to this ring. And that is out of respect for the what? For the diamond. Nah, Allahu alam. So many people, they misunderstand this. They think that Islam or seeking knowledge is to ignore your body or reject the needs of your body. No, that's wrong. Last but not least is you can exercise, you can be, in good health and study at the same time. You have headphones, you have Bluetooth. When I started studying, there was no such thing as Bluetooth, or it wasn't available to the public. There was no such thing as an AirPod. There's no such thing as that. You had to have, headphones plugged into your Walkman or your radio or your CD player. And then they had the little attachments to different things, but, you didn't have AirPods. You couldn't be far away from your phone. You couldn't be hands-free, cordless, studying, doing things. We didn't have access to internet. There was no iPhone back then. There was no Google back then. So you guys have so many different blessings and so many different things of ease. You can study while you walk, while you run, while you exercise. You can listen to the beneficial information, so on and so forth. And of course, one of the easiest ways and one of the best ways of maintaining your health, and it's cheap and free, is walking. Wallahu alam, walk.
Sometimes your health precedes your knowledge. You need to take care of your health. You're sick. This, that.
No, and how you want to study if you're sick?
Azar.
Exactly. I'm free from this. I have nothing to do with him. Fadda.
Initials MA from Brooklyn, New York. I'm sorry, I skipped some persons. Initials MA from Brooklyn, New York. Should I pray behind the innovator or pray alone if he's the imam?
We'll stop here tonight. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina wa imamina Muhammad.